Luocha's banner is dropping in just a couple days, and of course whether or not to pull for him is a question on a lot of people's minds. I'm not going to get into a lot of details about his kit, but the important stuff is that he is an imaginary healer, who as opposed to Natasha and Bailu's HP scaling burst healing, focuses more on continuous sustained healing over time that scales on his attack stat. This type of sustain can make some people a little nervous because when your team's HP is low, it's a huge relief when you can use your healer's ability and see that big chunk of HP recovery, and Luocha doesn't have that. But if you've played other RPGs, you'll know, and if you haven't, I'll tell you, that even though this more gradual healing isn't as noticeable, it does add up over time and can keep your team alive just as easily. It's just like when we get happier seeing those huge single damage numbers from certain DPS units and equate that to doing more damage than a case where there are several smaller instances of damage that aren't as noticeable, but adds up to being the same amount. He also provides a debuff cleanse for your team and a buff removal for the enemies, so he provides other utility other than just healing. So first, let's talk about some pros and cons. Right now, Natasha is the only free healer in the game, so she's a lot of people's only healer, since the only other healer is Bailu, who as a standard banner 5-star can be very elusive. So just by nature of being a healer, Luocha can bring a lot of value. Luocha provides continuous healing over time that doesn't rely on his ultimate. His skill will auto-trigger every few turns when an ally's HP reaches 50% or lower without spending a skill point, making him skill point neutral or even skill point positive in some cases. On top of his healing, he can remove buffs from enemies, which consolidates the roles of healer and debuffer, freeing up a spot in the team for another buffer or sub DPS, and or freeing up a debuffer for your other team. He is an imaginary unit, which right now we have the least amount of coverage for. His healing scales on attack, and his ultimate is damage based, so you'll be building attack on him, in turn making his damage contribution non-negligible. He's actually quite free to play friendly and can be easy to build. Free to play light cones work well on him, and he'll want either a full set or combination of Musketeer of Wild Wheat and Passerby of Wandering Cloud, which happen to be in the same relic domain, which can be efficient to farm since a lot of other units also want Wild Wheat. You also get a bunch of free pieces of both sets just from playing the game. He is a rate up 5-star, meaning that if you save or spend enough, you can guarantee him instead of praying to RNGesus for Bailu just to have a second healer. On the flip side, his burst doesn't provide any healing, so he doesn't have that emergency heal that Natasha and Bailu do. Since you'll be building him for attack and not HP, he won't be as tanky as the other healers with the much higher HP pool. He's still susceptible to damage over time and multiple hits, so he's not invincible. Not being a burst healer means his sustain can require strategy to play around in order to maximize his healing, which can lead to some sticky situations if you're not careful. Again, he is a rate up 5-star, which as just mentioned can be a pro but can also be a con, because even though you can guarantee him with enough jades, that means you have to spend those jades, and especially if you're free to play, that means having to choose him over other characters in the near future. All that being said, now I'm going to go over the actual reasons why you should or shouldn't pull him, but I'm going to preface this by saying that no character is a must pull. It's a single player game, and the characters you pull for are only going to affect your own experience. There is absolutely nothing you can't make up for with time in games like this, and every character is viable if you put enough into them. So, reasons for pulling Luocha. He's husbando material. The golden rule of gacha games when it comes to pulling is waifu or husbando over everything, always. If he's your husbando, that's all the reason you need to pull for him. You think his character, story, design, kit, etc. are interesting, or you just think you'll have a lot of fun playing him. Again, it's a single player game, and the point is to have fun. If you think Luocha will provide that for you, that is more important than meta. You want a second healer, or feel the need for a second healer. Is another healer completely necessary? Not really. You can get by without one with enough work, but will it make your experience more comfy? It can, and if you want that now, there's nothing wrong for getting Luocha for that. You want imaginary coverage. The only current imaginary unit is Welt, and he's a standard 5-star, so you could play for a very long time without ever getting him. Enemies are always weak to more than one element though, so having an imaginary unit is not necessary, but wanting more diverse coverage is totally valid. you do want him for meta reasons. He is going to provide a lot of utility on top of his healing as well as team damage contribution, so he'll be a valuable addition to your account no matter what. You want the 4 stars on the banner and are okay with getting Luocha. I can't stress that part enough. Please do not ever build pity. That's not a thing. That's how you ruin guarantees or get 5 stars you don't want. But if you are fine with maybe getting Luocha, or if you're on a 50-50 and you don't care if you get him or a standard 5-star instead, but you want to try to get Yukong or Eidolons for Pela or QQ, then pulling on the banner is fine. Now for reasons not to pull, you're saving for Kafka and or Blade. You want another character more? Easy skip. You can always get Luocha on a rerun. You aren't interested in the character or his kit. If you don't like a character, don't pull for them. Easy as that. Do not spend jades on characters you don't want to play. You don't feel the need for another healer. If you're fine with the setup with the defensive units you have now, you don't have to pull Luocha if your only reason is people are saying he's broken, etc. But if you don't really want him, you don't need him, don't pull for him. You're fine to wait for 1.2 for the free Yukong for imaginary coverage. Like I said, having more diverse coverage is great, but not always necessary. And if you're okay with waiting a bit longer to get Yukong just for imaginary coverage, don't feel obligated to pull on this banner. You don't really care about meta, or you feel like your debuff coverage is adequate with, say, Silver Wolf and or Pela if you already have them, for example. At the end of the day, limited 5 stars are luxury units and you don't need any of them. So no matter what anyone says, pull or don't pull based on what you have and what you want. Gacha games operate on selling FOMO, so don't let the fact that a banner is limited trick you into thinking that you need to get them now. They will always be back for reruns, and since the game doesn't have any PvP or competitive gameplay, if you wait for a rerun, the character is not suddenly going to be useless. The banner also runs for 3 weeks, so you don't have to pull for him on day 1. You can wait a bit to see what people say about him once they've actually had a chance to play him and then decide. Anyway, I hope this helps. I think some people get a little too caught up in the way characters get over or underhyped, whether it's by content creators or the community in general. And I know it also might get tiring to hear pull who you want all the time, but it is your game and you're the only one playing it. So really, pull who you want. Let me know in the comments if you're pulling Luocha for sure, or if you're skipping him, or if you're waiting to decide. As always, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos to come, and I will see you next time.